Travel can be a tricky thing. Sometimes you can underplan and find yourself stranded without a hotel or transportation, or worse, in some peril. On the other hand, you can overthink it so much that there are oversized expectations that can never be realized. The actual trip seems like a consolation prize to a planning process, or worse, it takes the wonder and surprise out of the experience. Admittedly, I am of the latter. I want to plan 110% with one or better 2 backup plans. That probably comes from my tour background. But then there are times that something wonderfully unexpected smacks you in the face and you have a memory that lasts a lifetime. That is what happened over and over again in the Bhavnagar region of Gujarat. Magnificent temples built on a mountain, wildlife in untold numbers, and the mining for a mineral that we all use way too much each day. So join me in Bhavnagar, land of surprises.
Namaste. I'm Bill Ball, and I'm going to be your guide on this episode of Journeys in India. And this is India.
Bhavnagar is located in the state of Gujarat, in the extreme northwest part of India. Within Gujarat, the city is in the south. It is about 120 miles from the state capital of Gandhinagar. Founded in 1724, it was the capital of the Principality of Bhavnagar and was only dissolved when it merged to form India in 1948. With a population near 1 million, it has always been an important trade city. Just 30 miles away is the world's largest port, making it a major distribution point. Prior to union with India, Bhavnagar was ruled by the Rajput Gohil family, one of 565 princely states that had to be brought into the fold. The Gohil family was actually the first to sign on to the union, leading the way for the rest to follow. One of the nearby wildlife attractions is the venerable Bhavnagar National Park, known for its beautiful black buck antelope population. That park, along with another Gujarat wildlife haven in Kutch, will be covered in another episode. But Bhavnagar is not the only animal sanctuary in Gujarat. The Nal Saravar Bird Sanctuary is home to thousands of birds, both resident and migratory, and is found in the central Gujarat, north of Bhavnagar. It is a good-sized bird reserve at nearly 50 square miles. It is the largest bird sanctuary in Gujarat and one of the largest in India. Formed in 1969, the lake attracts over 200 species of birds in the winter. It is the only declared lake in India that is a wetland of importance by the Ramsar Convention. Other waterways listed as such include Okefenokee in Georgia, Corkscrew Swamp in Florida, as well as the Everglades, the Ogavanga Delta in Botswana, and the Avon River Valley of the Shakespeare fame. The sanctuary earned its title as a wintering ground for birds ranging from northern Asia to Europe. One of those migrants is a bird that I have always admired and loved to watch: cranes. Even non-birders can appreciate these magnificent feathered friends. Cranes are large birds, some approaching 6 foot tall, in a relatively small family, only about 15 species. Virtually all cranes have a distinctive red color on their head, some more than others. These were the first cranes I saw in Gujarat, and they entranced me. Even though their numbers were small, I had read that sometimes hundreds of cranes migrate to Gujarat. I didn't care. I was getting up close and quite personal with an Asiatic species of crane known as the demoiselle crane. The first time you see any animal in the wild, it is something you never forget. Kind of like your first kiss. That is especially true for a regal animal like these avians. I had no idea at this moment of observation that in a week, that would be premature and spoil another episode. Suffice it to say that cranes, me, and Gujarat were not finished. The sanctuary has a routine each and every day of the week, especially in the winter peak season, that helps local employment, which in turn helps the preservation of the birds. The only access to the vast wetlands is on hand-poled boats. Each boat comes, usually, with 2 polers and, on request, a local bird guide. The little extra that the local guide costs is well worth it. The polers generally do not speak English, and the birder guide can direct the human motors to go to a specific part of the lake where the desired species might be found. At first, I was content to see the large variety of wetland birds that Saravar yielded as we poled through the tall reeds. We saw our share of pied kingfishers with their incredible ability to hover and dive after prey, normally small fish. Once they are successful, which is surprisingly quite often, they head for the nearest limb to eat their hard-fought prize. We also spotted a large number of more plodding fishing birds like egrets and herons. These birds are what I call slow stalkers. They position themselves in the reeds and wait for fish to come to them. I would never make a good egret or heron. I've got too much energy. I'm more in line with the kingfisher. These birds are all resident birds, found here year-long. I had heard rumors that one of my favorite bird families could be found here as well. I asked the guide, and off we went. The locals do not hunt the birds. They are worth more as a tourist draw now, but they do fish these waters using nets and fishing lines. Often working in pairs, one hits the water to drive the fish towards the net. As clever as man is, they can't beat any kingfisher, who are really the kings of fishing. The success of the crane found gave me enough incentive to go after one more desired species, the flamingo. I made my request and off we went towards the opposite side of the lake. The vast size of the wetlands is impressive. At over 32,000 acres, there is a lot of space set aside for the varied bird life. During the rainy season, the wetlands grow and deepen, though the average depth rarely exceeds 4 feet. Flamingos need shallow water that they can wade in, and they tend to be then at the edges of the lake. Sure enough, as we got to the far end of the marshland, there are a number of large, pink, stately birds strolling along the bank. This is also the border of the reserve. Local farmers allow their buffalo to congregate here. Buffalo are milked and their manure is dried and used as the fuel in the cold winters. Though cows are sacred and not eaten by India's predominant Hindu faith, some people say buffalo are not cows and thus edible. There are actually 2 species of flamingos found in Saravar, the lesser and the greater. Not surprisingly, the chief difference between the 2 is size. Flamingos are filter eaters, meaning they scoop up water with their bills and filter the blue-green algae and brine shrimp that they then consume. Their pink color is a direct result of the keratins in their food. Flamingos are an incredibly beautiful and iconic bird. It is a wonder to see them in the wild with such a healthy population. From Saravar, we began to head south towards Bhavnagar. Not far from the city, we run into a most unusual farming enterprise. As I said at the outset, Gujarat was full of surprises, and this was one of them. I had never dreamed that there would be so many chilies laid out in one spot like this. The workers were quite busy moving the hot seed pods from one area to another. I wanted to get a rundown of what they were doing, but a language barrier almost prevented that. Our cameraman, an Indian national from Assam, tried speaking the national language Hindi with the workers. It was a no-go. These Gujaratis spoke only the local Gujarat dialect. Ironically, I found one of them that spoke some English. They explained that this was prime chili season and they were first drying, then classifying the types of peppers before juicing them. They told me that these were very hot chilies. Now, one thing I learned in my travels around the Indian subcontinent, when an Indian says something is hot, it is super mind-melting hot. For Gujaratis, hot, not only daily temperatures, but food as well, is not only a way of life, but something they embrace with vigor. Tomorrow was going to be an early start, so we headed for the hotel. Bhavnagar was a Rajput or small kingdom of the Gohil family. After they conceded to joining the Indian Union in 1948, they lost their power, but continued to be influential as business people. One of those successful businesses was turning the family palace into another type of palace, an upscale hotel. Known as the Nilambag Palace Hotel, this oasis within the bustle of the city is a great escape. One of the best hotel experiences you can ever have is staying in a king's palace or castle, or in this case, a Maharaja's royal residence. It is another dimension that makes a location a true destination. Not all of the royal homes are still truly royal in luxury. Some have not been fully updated, so check the property out online thoroughly. But even properties that are not 5 stars can be a special experience. Though Nilambag Palace Hotel is not the highest level of luxury, it is authentic, fun, and quite nice. Staying where a Maharaja stayed, or in many cases still lives, gives you another sense of the local history and the life of the ruling class. It is also usually one of the finest places to eat. I found, almost without exception, that the Palace Hotel restaurants serve some of the best local and regional Indian cuisine in the area. In fact, the owners of the hotel, whether still held in royal hands or by a commercial group, put most of their money into the restaurant's restoration. With a full day of activities, a quick check of the schedule told me that we had some temples to visit, the city market, and an archaeological site. I instructed the driver to head first to the market. They are usually more lively before everything has been picked over and the customers have thinned out. He stressed that we should do the temples on Palatana first, in the cool of the day. But really, why would doing temples in the cool of the day be so important? I insisted on the market first. This was a wide, crowded, and truly, you can find anything here, bazaar that is being slowly replaced in the more modern and commercial cities. Ironically, one of the mainstays of these shopping zones is the fresh fruits and vegetables, which our more shopping center-oriented society is reverting back to with weekly farmers markets. Ironic how the pendulum swings. Despite the driver still insisting on the temples, I have him head to the Lothal archaeological site. On the way, we stumble on something that fascinated me.
This may not look too edible now, but with a little processing, your French fries will be begging for it.
A mining operation. Well, I'm not sure mining is the correct term. More accurately, salt extraction. This is one of the most ingenious ways of letting nature do most of the work for you. Canals are cut to allow salt water to flow in through pipes, and then the canal is closed to prevent too much water from coming in. Evaporation does the rest. The end result is salt crystals. All that is left for the workers to do is gather and bag the cooking necessity. Salt is a major trade item today, and it seems trade was the major reason why the ancient port of Lothal even existed. Surrounded by agricultural fields, this is a very unlikely place for a port city. In fact, I couldn't see the sea at all. So I asked an American researcher on site to help me understand what this was and why it's important.
Actually, the name of the site is Lothal, and this was a important site during the Indus or Harappan civilization, which dates roughly from about 2600 to 1900 BC or so. And this is a very, very important site because it's been excavated, and the project that you can see going on behind us now is called the Lothal Revisitation Project. And this is an Italian mission to the site, working in conjunction with the Archaeological Survey of India, conducting some test trenches to try to determine the extent of the site and locate additional features and cultural materials that were not initially discovered during the earlier excavations here. Lothal is famous because of the interpretation that it was an ancient port site. And among the many features that we've discovered here is an area that has been interpreted as a dockyard where ships and other vessels could have come and unloaded cargo. Yes, certainly there's no water here now, or at least very, very little. But we think that in the distant past that there might have been a river that flowed nearby the site. In fact, there were many, many Harappan sites that were founded and built either near or on important sources of water. And so one of the things that the team is trying to do right now is determine whether there was indeed at one point a river or another kind of channel or canal that would have linked this area, this site, with more distant regions where there's water sources, namely the Gulf of Kambat and also the Gulf of Kutch.
The work on the Lothal site has revealed a civilization that little was known about until recently.
And so what you're saying is this civilization parallels Egypt, was quite advanced, maybe building canals for several kilometers.
Yes.
And what we've got now are these ruins that people like you are working through.
Correct. Incredibly sophisticated urban planning. Many of the settlements were built and organized along a grid system. Many of the larger sites have drains and sewage systems that were developed to remove dirty water and other waste. This is a level of sophistication that was not seen before or after until Rome.
So what you're saying is this civilization might have been ahead of Egypt in the same period of time.
I would say so, yes.
Wow, that's impressive.
Many other people would probably disagree with me, but I would say so, yes. And unlike Egypt and Mesopotamia, because of the fact that we are not able to read the writing, there are still many things that we don't understand about the Indus civilization. And so this is why we're here working right now.
This was more surprising to me, a vast empire, virtually unknown to the outside world, making it even more interesting.
How big was this civilization in terms of size? What, in contemporary world, where did it fit?
Massive, massive. Twice as big as ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. We have sites from southern Afghanistan all the way to Gujarat here in India. Incredibly massive. At least 5 major cities and numerous smaller settlements as well. Today we know of at least 1,500 sites that have been classified to belonging to this civilization.
Researchers are unsure how large the population was, but it was one of the larger cities and cultures in India at the time, maybe even in the world. The day had been up to this point full of fascinating and somewhat surprising finds. Now, finally, I relented to head to the temples on the hill in Palatana. By the time we arrived, it was afternoon at the peak of the day's heat. So we're going to visit the temples and head back to the air-conditioned hotel for a respite. But this is where the day gets really interesting. As we filmed the temple at the base of the hill, I find out why the driver had insisted on us going in the cool of the morning. Only one of the 900 temples are at the foot of Palatana. The rest are at the top. Not along the way, as we could do a few and then return, but at the very top. And at the top, I mean 4,000 steps. Yeah, 4,000. With no choice but to climb, off we went. Palatana is a special place for Jains. In fact, this is one of, if not the, holiest pilgrimage place for Jains. The temples were built over a 900-year period, starting in the 11th century. All but one of the 24 holy men of the faith visited this site. The climb gave me time to contemplate the history of the site, as well as my folly in not listening to the driver earlier. The steps are numbered so I could see my first target ahead.
All right, I made it to step 1,000. Now, that may seem like a lot, and believe me, it was a lot, but I'm only a quarter of the way there. I've got another 2,950 steps to go. I've got to blame somebody for this.
There was an easier way to go. Hire someone to carry you. Many of the pilgrims are older, so for about $10 US per carrier, you can go in style. Unfortunately for me, it was not in the budget.
Well, I've made it to step 2,000. I'm over halfway there. But I've been told that the last 1,950 steps are the easy ones. I hope so.
Halfway, and I'm encouraged. I could now start to finally make out the temples at the top. My destination seemed at hand.
Okay, I know this is starting to sound like a broken record, but another 1,000 feet, 3,000. Now that doesn't seem like a lot, maybe 1,000 more feet, but trust me, it was. But what's really weird about it is the cameraman had me go down and come up, go down and come up. Kept saying I wasn't walking right, and then I realized the camera wasn't even on. Well, 1,000 to go.
Energized that my journey was nearly over, I actually picked up the pace. I began to feel the sanctity of the place as I neared the great temples. All pilgrimage locations in the world, no matter the faith, hold a special power endowed on it by its worshipers. They are often places of peace and soul searching, even for those of other faiths. I had made it, and it felt good, physically, spiritually, and mentally. In a way, walking among the temples is a bit anticlimactic. They are magnificent and awe-inspiring. But with most pilgrimages in life, as is life itself, the journey is what is most important, not so much the final destination. No one had to tell me to have a big dinner and sleep after the climb up Palatana. My visit to the greater Bhavnagar area had been incredible and surprising to say the least. Before we even explored the wildlife side that is, of Gujarat, the locals told me I had to visit one particular temple in town, the Takeshwar Temple. The temple, completed at the end of the 19th century, was named for a local ruler that ordered it to be built. One of the oldest temples in Gujarat, it was dedicated to Shiva, the destroyer. Now, I'm not sure with all the Hindu deities out there that I would have my name on a temple built for a destroyer. The temple even has a Nandi bull in the courtyard. The bull is a mount for Shiva as well as his gatekeeper. As pilgrims enter, many ring the bell to let the gods know that they are here. The view from the temple is a fitting way to bid Bhavnagar goodbye. Often you can never tell what unusual finds you may come upon when wandering off the tried and true path, and Bhavnagar is one of those. The history, wildlife, and adventure of this area is astounding. The Sarabar Bird Sanctuary is one of the best birding locations not only in India, but the whole of Asia. The rich history of the region is being revealed at this moment with one of the most exciting archaeological digs in the world at Lothal. The traditions and culture of the city can be observed every day of the year at a local market where you can buy just about anything. And of course, the ultimate spiritual adventure can be had with a climb of 4,000 steps to the literally hundreds of temples and shrines of Palatana, one of the most holy places of the Jain faith. You do not need to be a believer to feel the peace and tranquility of these works of art. Until next time, look to the past for answers, live life in the present, and gladly head to the future for the surprises it holds.